Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today, I have Ted Cawkwell joining me. Ted, how are you doing?
Doing amazing. Yourself, Tracy?
Good. Any day I get to have fantastic conversations for the benefit of farmers is an amazing day in my books. I am actually extra excited to talk to you today. We're going to be doing a real estate spotlight, chatting about, ironically, the purpose of our website. We are, as you know, Ted, you're a client. We are the largest farm real estate agent website in Canada. We help real estate agents advertise their properties, and you are one of our members. Today, we're going to be talking about real estate in your world as you work with buyers and sellers all over. So, Ted, you are an agriculture specialist and you are with your group, the Cawkwell Group, in Saskatchewan. Do you want to give our audience a little bit deeper of an understanding of who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
Yes, I would love to. So, I'm a farm boy at heart. My very first business was growing up on a family farm, and we had a grain farm in northeast Saskatchewan. And I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So, I was always trying to grow and develop new things to do. So, I had a custom application business, doing spraying for other farmers. And then I started dabbling in a bit of tourism stuff. Started out really small and grew it into, fly-in fishing resorts, and actually exited farming for a while to go follow that path. I built and operated one of the most luxurious and remote fishing resorts in Canada. That turned into some consulting work for other lodges and other businesses. And then I found my way 14 years ago to the world of farmland real estate. Um, I've been involved in the farm on and off, pretty much on the whole time, but in different capacities. So, I currently still farm, but I'm in a joint venture, so I'm not boots on the ground. But farming is in my blood, and that's why I think I'm in the perfect place today as a farmland realtor.
I love it. And you are a farmland realtor in Saskatchewan. So you work with buyers and sellers in Saskatchewan, right?
That's right. And something unique about what I do is I work the whole province.
Okay.
And, to give that really high-end service that we're known for, I've had to build a bit of a team so we could give exemplary customer service while working a big area. So that's been really fun. And it came out of necessity because I didn't want to leave a client. You'd be
Mm.
working with a client in Tisdale, Saskatchewan, and the next day they're looking at a farm in Regina. And what most realtors were doing was saying, well, that's not my area. And pretty early on, I was like, well, this is my people. I got to
Yeah.
stick with them, help them. So
Yeah.
so I adopted a bit of a unique process there.
Oh, good. I'm excited for our conversation. We're going to be talking about buying, selling, farmland value right across the province. So let's dive right in. Let's start 30,000 foot view of farmland in Saskatchewan. What is the current farmland market like in the province?
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit in history and then I'll
Mm.
end up where we are today because I think that gives a bit of perspective and clarity.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, we've had this really, really interesting time in Saskatchewan farmland, values in particular. Over the past 14 years that I've been a realtor, farmland values have been appreciating at a rate that was unprecedented. Nobody that I've ever met expected values to go up that sharply or for that long. So it was a really interesting time. And what we're seeing now in the past year or so is that appreciation of farmland is just starting to tilt down a little bit. It's still rising, but not as sharply. And the reason being is farmland values track very closely to profitability at the farm gate. And so the profitability is coming down a little bit. Grain prices are lower. And so the appreciation's coming down a bit. So we're moving out of a strong seller's market into more of a balanced market. So
Mm.
that kind of gives buyers and sellers equal opportunities. The buyers are doing a big hooray because they finally have a little bit of say in that negotiation where before they were just kind of had to pay what they had to pay. And so it's really quite it's a gentle shift, but it is a shift that we haven't seen in quite a long time.
Well, and every time I would talk to a client about real estate and farmland values, it's like, okay, it's at the top. It can't go any higher, right? And you're just going and going. It's like, what? So I was kind of expecting you to say that especially since farmland is so tied to the income of farmers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you touched on farmland prices. Maybe we'll go there a little bit, but I want to ask you, who are the people that are looking for land right now? Is it still the grain farmers? Is it the cattle guys now that there's a little extra money?
Yeah, it's both and. So I would say um, the ranchers, the cattle producers, we don't see as much of them in the market. They're definitely there, especially now that profits are
Yeah.
coming. It took a little while because they had it pretty rough for a while. So it took a little bit of time for them to build up, the bank account, but they're starting to show up now in bigger ways. I know we sold a 10,000 acre ranch out near Humboldt, Saskatchewan, a month or two ago. And
Wow.
so, they're starting to show up with little pieces and big pieces. The grain producers are still there, but they're just not as excited as they were a year or two ago. You
Mm,
know, some of the lenders are getting a little bit tighter restrictions on them, and their profits have been squeezed a bit. So they're still there. They're excited to buy. They're just moving a little slower and taking their time.
that makes sense. Okay, and one further to that I'm just thinking of, who is buying? Is it farmers within the province, outside, or foreign buyers? Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say most of our buyers are farmers in this marketplace. Historically, like going back, and I'm looking at my window as a realtor in the 14 years that I've been doing this, probably the first 10 or 12 years, it was a pretty good mix of investors and
Mm,
farmers. And
okay.
the last couple of years, the investors have really faded away. And that happened when the interest rates went up.
Okay.
So when they were borrowing money at 3%, and they were getting a 3% return, they were going, well, I'm doing pretty good because of the appreciation.
Yeah.
But, now that they're borrowing at 6% and getting a 3% return and the appreciation's coming down,
Oh,
most of the smaller ones have faded away. And so most of the ones we worked with were the little moms and pops, right? Like maybe it's Judy, who's a school teacher, and David is a mechanic at John Deere, and they have two kids, so they want to own 2/4 of farmland to leave for them. And so I did a lot of work with those people. The bigger institutions we've also worked with as well. They're still there and buying. They can't leave the market because they're so heavily invested, but
mm.
they're struggling to get cash. And I've spoke to most of them in the last month or two, and they're like, "Yeah, we're kind of on the road doing a tour, trying to round up some funds because just the farming thing is just slowed down a bit, and it's not as sexy to investors as it was a year or two ago." So I would say today it's probably 90+% farmers from the province and maybe a little mix of investors and farmers from outside the province. And to your point about foreign investors, in Saskatchewan, we have the tightest farmland restrictions in the country, and they've just got tighter. They
Yep.
just made a few new changes. So to own more than 10 acres of land in Saskatchewan, you need to be a Canadian citizen or a Canadian resident. Your money has to come from a Canadian source. It can't be you're Canadian, but it's coming across, from Scotland or somewhere. It has to be money that's here. no Canada pension plans, no pension plans at all. So it's pretty regulated. Now, I've heard of people slipping through the cracks, but I've never experienced that because I do a very thorough check when I first meet a buyer. And so yeah, we're mostly dealing if they are investors, there's certainly, or if they are um, not from here, they have to be a citizen.
Right. Okay. I'm glad I thought to ask that because you and I both, we're farmers. We have our ear to the ground. You know the conversation, especially you go on the X or the social media and you'll hear all the farmer chat, right? And fair enough. And I'm a balanced approach here. I'm Switzerland, neutral party here because we have people that watch the show that are investors and capital companies. We have farmers, we have real estate agents watching, but you always hear how farmers are so frustrated because they're competing against those outside dollars or investment dollars. So I'm glad I thought to ask you that because that's really good to know.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of, I'm a farmer too, and like you, I'm like Switzerland and it's sitting in the middle, but there is a lot of misconceptions about this. There's a lot of political stuff going on. I get interviewed all the time, and farmers are kind of pounding their fists on the table, and I don't want this competition, but you know, only 2% of the land in Saskatchewan is owned by investors. So they're not really a major competitive force. And also, they can't pay as much as a farmer can. They
Really?
just, how could they? Like they have to have a return on investment either for
Right.
themselves or for their clients. So any investor today is losing money, right?
Mm,
For sure, because
yeah.
their borrowing costs are more than their cap rate or more than their return on investment. So it's not like someone that's, hey, this is touching my home half. I can pay up a bit for it. I already own 40 quarters. I'll just throw it in the mix. They don't have that. So it's a lot of coffee shop row, and I think it's a lot of we don't like the outsider. And have they been competitive in a small area for a small amount of time? Oh, for sure, probably. But they're typically paying less money than the farmers, and they're a very, very small piece of the puzzle at 2%.
Interesting. I am so glad I thought to ask that. I think I'm going to clip this segment and put it on social media.
Well,
You might
it's
get some
funny.
really good comments.
You will, and they won't like me. It'll be farmers saying this isn't true and blah blah blah. I know because but it's just that's the facts. 2% of the market can't move the market more than 2%, and certain areas there might be more investors or more aggressive ones, but none of the investors are aggressive right now that I've spoken to. They're all sitting back, trying to find money or get some money.
Oh, good. Thanks for clearing that up. I think that's valuable for people to actually know, boots
Yeah.
on the ground, what is happening, because you not only work with the individuals that are buying, you know the industry, you know who everybody's working with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there are like it's a double-edged sword with the investors. They also rent back their land 100% of the time to local producers. So I have a lot of calls from typically younger farmers, undercapitalized farmers, saying, hey, if an investor's buying land in my area, I'd really like to rent it from them because I can't afford to buy land and I'm looking for land to rent. So I think people are usually just looking at the bad side of it, but there's a good side up to it as well.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Ted. I appreciate that. So, we touched on it a little bit in terms of the current farmland market, but I wanted to see if you want to go deeper. You gave us the momentum, but do you want to chat about farmland prices any at a deeper level? Maybe whether it's different areas, different buyers. Is there anything you want to add about farmland prices?
Sure. Yeah, I can add a little bit.
Okay.
You mentioned different areas. It really is area specific. Like I said earlier, farmland values track profitability at the farm gate. So if you're in an area that's been weather pressured for a number of years, and there are some of those primarily in the southwest part of the province due to drought, I mean, it's getting pretty hard to sell land down there. You can't give it away in certain areas. They haven't had a good crop in 5 years, 6 years. So the farmers aren't competing to buy it. So I mean, there are some opportunities to buy down there right now. There's other areas that have been more average, and we're seeing more average prices there. And there's areas that have had really great crops over the past decade, and those are the most competitive, highest priced land areas in the province.
Forgive me for my and lack of understanding on geography of every province and every area in Canada. Okay. Is that the
Forgiven.
Palliser Triangle area that you hear farmers talking about where they've been so dry? Is that that area?
Yes, exactly. There and even south of there. And there's pockets because you know how the weather is. An area will get a good timely rain, so they're little bubbles. And these bubbles are always moving around, right? Like this area has been profitable, and then all of a sudden they have 2 or 3 bad years. This year area hasn't been profitable, and then they get 2 or 3 good years. So the farmland values, it's kind of like popcorn. Like, you
Mm,
know, in that past 14 years when those values were going up, it wasn't steady in every area. It was like this area went, and then that area went, and then this area went, and then that area went. And there's always bargains somewhere,
mm.
right? There's somewhere that's lacking behind, and then there's somewhere that's like leading. And it's all profitability based.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, and this may be an impossible task, but I am curious, and I'm sure people in the audience will be as well. I deal with clients right across Canada. We know farmland values in BC and Ontario, like those outliers, right? And then Alberta. What is, could we, could we, could Tracy ask you the question of what is the low end of Saskatchewan farmland? What is the average that farmers would be looking at? And what is the highest you've seen? Is that a fair question or impossible to ask?
Well, it's impossible to answer it accurately, but I can give you a holistic answer that will
Sure.
take the province as a whole.
Okay.
And I guess first of all, we'd have to establish what quality of land are we talking about. So I'm going to say, for example purposes, we're looking for if 10 is the highest quality and one's the lowest, if we're looking at land that's maybe a 7 or an 8 of quality and it's grain land, and we're talking provincially, I would say the low end would maybe be $2,500 an acre, and the high end would maybe be 6,000, maybe 6,500, probably 6,000 an acre, uh,
Okay.
maybe a little more. And that's so it's a wide range,
Yeah.
and 2,500, I mean, that's pretty rare to find that, and 6,500, that's pretty rare. So if we're looking for that average, it's probably 3,500 to 4,500 per acre for that good quality grain land. And you know that it's going to be much lower in some areas and much higher in others.
Interesting. You know what? And it is so different right across the map. Saskatchewan is still incredibly affordable.
Probably the most affordable land in Canada, potentially some of the most affordable land in the free world.
Wow.
And that's why we do have investors show up here, right? If they're Canadian citizens or residents, this is a good place to park a little bit of money.
Mm,
And especially now, I think, we've got some uncertain economic times and also some uncertain political times. And farmland is viewed as a really good hedge against inflation. So, I think farmers are looking at that, and the investors are looking at that as well. And I think that's going to prop it up a little. It's also a pretty safe asset in turbulent political times, and we're certainly in some of those right now. So, it's sort of like farmland and gold. Like there's certain
right.
stores of value, and I would certainly put farmland as one of those. So that's why people are attracted to this province. I've run into farmers from Manitoba, Alberta, Ontario that are selling there to come here because it makes sense. They can run a spreadsheet and a business plan and make it work for them and make money off the farm where, some of these areas in Ontario where it's 30,000, 40,000 an acre, you're an investor. You're not making money on your farm. You're buying the land, speculating that it's going to appreciate in value. Where in
Interesting.
Saskatchewan, you can still farm and make money off the farm.
Wow. I didn't realize that. And even Manitoba, we've well surpassed that in many areas. And wow,
Sure.
Alberta, Ontario, BC. So, one more question further to that is you just said that you sold a chunk of 10,000, a farm, 10,000 acres. So, on average, can you still find good chunks of farmland together to buy?
There's not many. So I would say, and I'm going to guess at this number, there's probably only two farms, maybe one or two farms a year of that size that sell in Saskatchewan. Um, One of the things that, I'm known for is some of those larger sales. I have a certain skill set and a certain level of expertise, so I kind of deal with more of those than a lot of the other realtors. And so finding those is pretty rare. But you can find them if you're patient. And if you've got a good realtor, sometimes that realtor can even build them for you over time.
Okay.
So there are blocks of land of all different sizes and shapes, but we really do have low inventory right now. So
Mhm.
it's not like it was 4 or 5 years ago. We have a half or maybe even a third the listings that we did back then. So it takes a lot longer to put together a specific type of package.
Interesting. Yeah, and 10,000, that's a pretty big farm too. So even like that 5,000, 3,500 to 5,000, is there still, well, you answered a couple a year more than that come up?
Yeah, like there'd be more. The smaller you go, the more there are. Like single quarters, we're seeing those come in and out of the market every day. Half sections, three, four quarters, pretty common. Once you get up to maybe 10 quarters, 1,500-ish, 1,600 acres, not as many. Once you get up to the size you're talking about, 3, 4,000 acres, a few less.
Okay,
So the bigger the package, the fewer there are. But the bigger the package, the fewer buyers you're competing with.
right.
So sometimes if you're looking for 4,000 acres, it might take a while for one to pop up, but when it does, there's not a bunch of other people that can bite off a chunk that big, right? Like that's a 4,000 acres that are, let's say we take $4,000 an acre, that's $16 million. There's not a lot of people that can step up to the plate for 16 million.
Yeah,
That's
you're
getting
right. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I was just kind of curious what comes up. I work with so many agents, but I don't know every single area and province. So I'm loving just chatting about these numbers and what does that average farm look like that comes up, right?
Yeah, and it's really changing. Like farms are getting bigger every day. And, a new trend is these satellite farms too. So, I
Mm,
mean, that 10,000 acre farm I was telling you about, that's their third farm. They have one in Alberta and two in Saskatchewan. And this is a common thing where people are saying, I can't expand in my area, so I'm going to start a second operation here, or maybe a third operation. And that's over the past 5, 6 years, that's becoming more common than one would think. So the landscape of Saskatchewan farming it's changing a bit, right? It's becoming more technological, it's becoming more sophisticated. These farm operators are really operating like CEOs for the most part. They're dealing with large amounts of money, and these are really intelligent, business-minded people.
yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes when I have these conversations, I just think to myself, wouldn't it be neat to sit down across from our grandfather or our great grandfather and say, just wait, one day in 2025, land will be worth. And could you just imagine that conversation from what they paid? Just wow. Yeah.
You know, I actually was lucky enough that I was able to have that conversation with my grandfather. And
Wow.
he's gone now, but he only passed away 5, 6 years ago. So when he started farming near Kelvington, Saskatchewan, where me and my family used to farm, he homesteaded. So the government gave him 160 acres,
Wow.
and he had to, the deal was you had to log 10 acres a year to keep the land.
Okay.
And they did that because that you brought it into production and you added value to the community in the area. So he'd go out and log with horses. So, I mean, 10 acres a year. And then he'd keep some of the firewood to heat the home
Mhm.
for, my mom and my aunts and uncles and my grandma, and they'd sell the rest. And so, I mean, out there with horses and hand saws, I mean, the land was free. It was just blood, sweat, and tears. And he built his farm up to about 4,000 acres, passed it off to my two uncles, and one of them, built their farm up to about 9,000 acres. The other one built theirs up to about 2,500. They both had different visions, and one's retired, and the one's in his early 70s still going. So, my grandpa saw land go from the government gives it to you if you clear it to probably about $3,500 an acre in our area. And he saw things really change from horses to diesel engine to, GPS driven machinery. And it was really cool for him and really cool for me to get to experience that with him. Like I'd go combining with him and stuff, and he'd just be amazed.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
neat that you got to experience that. I was a little bit too young when he was still alive to even think to have those conversations. So that's really cool that you got to
Yeah.
hear it from him. And wow, go Ted's grandpa. That was great.
Oh, it was great. I'd go visit him and my grandma almost every week.
Mm.
And me and my grandpa just sat in the living room and we just talked farming. Like
Oh,
we both just have farming in our blood. And so I have like hundreds of hours of stories talking to him. And, one of them I remember he's telling me about a hailstorm on one of his first years farming and it took everything out. And he started crying. He had tears in his eyes. And this is like 50, 60 years later. And you go, I feel so privileged to be a farmland realtor because I actually understand what these farm families are going through in a sale, how emotional it is, or even buying. Because it's like, I'm a fourth generation farmer, both sides of my family. Like I get it.
mhm.
I sat with my grandpa crying about crop losses. Like I know who the farmers are, and I think it really helps me be a lot better at my job, because I understand the people in this industry. I have compassion for the hard times. I have excitement for the good times with them, and I can stand by their side and help them navigate this ever-changing landscape.
I love it. You kind of mirror my journey too. I'm a farmer, come from farmers, and the reason I do this show is because I love the farm. I want farmers to succeed. Who can I interview? Who can I talk to help farmers succeed, right? So that's a mutual passion we have. So I think that's a perfect segue. Thank you for sharing that, Ted. That's amazing. I didn't even think to be going into ancestry here, but hey, we're talking about farmland. And if
Yeah,
there is nothing else that connects you to your roots and your ancestors, it's farmland. So very appropriate. So thank you for sharing.
you're welcome.
Hey, sellers, I am curious, and I'm going to say this. Sometimes, again, when you're hearing the coffee shop talk, you're hearing the social media talk, it is hard because I have what, 5,000 followers on just X. So you don't see that all, but you're inundated by usually the negative. We're going to go here, and I'm hoping you're going to just walk me through what's going on, what buyers and sellers are thinking to put that boots on the ground. But you hear oh my goodness, commodity prices, inputs, this is not good. So I wonder, is there a lot of people actually panicking and wanting to sell the farm because of low commodity, high input, or is that just the coffee shop talk, the venting, coming out on social media, and we're all a little more boots on the ground? What can you level me out on who's looking at selling?
Absolutely. So you're 100% correct. My experience has been the same as yours. The people that are most vocal on social media or in the coffee shop are typically more negative leaning. So the
Okay.
messaging we're hearing out there is more negative than what I'm actually hearing when I'm talking to a you know, diverse group of farmers.
Okay.
So for sure, the mood is not as positive as it was a year or two ago because grain prices are lower, especially on the grain side. Like
Yeah.
ranching is different. They're happy. I talked to one of my ranching clients yesterday and he's having a great time. And, it's about time and good for them.
Yeah.
But on the grain side, grain prices are lower, input costs are super high, machinery costs are crazy high. It's getting tougher. So, yes, there are people that are thinking of selling
Mm.
and probably for good reason. I mean, it's a good time to sell right now. We've rode this thing up as far as we can. It's starting to taper off. We still have a very low number of farms for sale. Inventory is low, so there's not much to pick from, but we are seeing more and more listings hit the market every day.
Okay.
So the listings are coming. I expect we'll have even more this winter. And but we're still a long ways away from an average number of listings. So over my 14 years as a realtor, the average number of listings would be around 500 and some. The highest I've seen is about 700, and that's farm listings provincially. And we got as low as 200. And so we've moved off a 200 to about 280. I think we were 280 or 290 this week. And so over the past 6 months, we've probably went up from maybe 220 to 280, 290. So that's 70 listings isn't much, but on a percentage basis, it's a lot.
Mhm.
So I think another factor driving that is the average age of a farmer. In Saskatchewan, the average age is 56. That's the middle of the road. So there's a lot of farmers in their 60s and 70s farming. I have some in my family, and they're still going strong. So I think because of that demographic being much older than most other businesses, now that it's not profitable, now that it's not as fun, some of those people are just gonna start selling now. And they maybe would have a year, two or three ago, but they were making money and still love doing what they love, and they're like, we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when I talk to our realtor clients, they're like, farmers never actually sell when they really should. Like when
No,
it's top, because you're like, one more kick at the kid. Who wants to sell when it's good and you love what you do? You don't want to retire. You don't want to sell anyways. So you're like, let's ride it out a little longer, right? It's like human nature.
it is human nature, and it is, you know, some people have enough, I guess, mental toughness to sell when the market's high.
Yeah.
But you're right. Most of them, they're just, it's like we're not going to sell canola at 20, but we'll maybe sell at 15 on the way down. And it's the same with their farm. We're not going to sell when it's the most profitable. We'll sell when it's a little less profitable. And you should always sell your business when it's most profitable. Any
Right.
business. If it's a
Yeah.
shoe store, a bakery, a farm, because it's worth more then, right?
Yeah.
So, but
Interesting.
it's still a great time to sell. And honestly, I don't blame these farmers. What other industry can you work in your 60s and 70s and love what you do? They don't want to quit, and I don't blame them. If you can keep going and it's your passion, go for it.
Yeah. Ted, now it's funny. You look at time as humans here. And it seems like we have a lot of time, but when you actually look at crop years, you actually look at calving years, there's a cycle of being a farmer and getting in, and it's like you're figuring it out. And depending where the economic cycle is, you're going to ride those. And then you're coming to the point where you're like, I got this. Like, debt's a little under control. I've got the common sense. I'm maybe speaking to my journey and probably life. But you're getting to those points where you're like, good, good, good. And then when you're getting to retirement age, hopefully you're having some debt paid down. You're in the golden years. who the heck? I could see it. I'm 43. Speaking to it, I could just see as a person that loves my media company and my husband, both of us love the farm. You just feel like you're getting good, good, good. And then all of a sudden it's like, retire? What? What? I just started, right? I don't know. That's maybe my journey or age.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like it's those first years of farming, typically are tough, right? Like you're over leveraged and it's a little more stressful and you're working harder. And like, well, look at my journey. I had a custom spraying business. I had a tourism thing on the side. That was just to help pay for the farm, right? Like I was running three businesses and then you can't blame them when they finally get to a place where it's like, hey, the debt's paid down. It's getting kind of easy. I've done this enough times. I know what to expect.
Yeah.
Like
I
you
know.
don't know those years, right?
Yes. That's why, really quick, and then I'll ask you my next question. I talk a lot about succession planning on the show. So when I'm talking about farmland value and who's moving out, I'm especially interested because I'm having that conversation on the show in terms of succession planning. Is there somebody to take over? Is the farm going to be sold? What are we doing with that estate? How are you getting in? So I love this. Real estate is obviously, we need the land for all farms that mirror conversation to real estate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Ted, I've taken us on a lot of beautiful rabbit trails. I hope you're enjoying it.
Uh,
I'm loving this real estate end of it. It's quite interesting. Of course, that's what do farmers care about? Farmland.
yep.
So, we talked about trends. Is there a land, you touched on this, if you don't want to go there anymore, that's okay, we can skip to the next one. Is there trends, certain parts of the province that are just like hot, hot, hot? Anything
Yeah.
you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean the profitable areas, right? So in recent years, that's been more east central Saskatchewan and northeast Saskatchewan. They've had
Mm,
better weather. We've had a warmer, drier trend, and Northeast Saskatchewan and East Central have historically been too wet and too cold. So now that it's a hotter, drier trend, they're about right. And then
mm,
when we talked about some of those challenge areas like Southwest, that's the hottest, driest part of the province. So of course they're going to hit first. Get hit first with, poor crops. So we don't know if we're going to go back to the regular trend of weather or if this is going to continue. But yeah, the hot areas right now are really northeast and east central, from what I'm seeing. And there's some areas in central Saskatchewan as well. Just areas that have had good weather,
yeah,
for a few years.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. One question we touched on again, kind of coming back to focus specifically on it, interest rates. I'm curious. Like, I was just floored when interest rates were going up, 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 up. Did you see that kind of dampen the interest? Or were you like a lot of people I talked to? It's just like status quo, business as normal. We're buying if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think people are making business-based decisions. And when they were starting to lift off, that coincided with the highest grain prices that we've ever seen. So
Right.
I think that's why people are like, we're still buying,
Yeah.
right? If that was to happen today, it would have a much more negative effect. It happened at the right time,
Okay.
and so of course, it never looks as good on your balance sheet at higher interest rates, but we were also coming from like all-time record lows, moving up to something that was probably average or maybe not even average in a long term. So it's not like they got crazy high, but it does make a big difference if you move, millions of dollars in farm debt from 3% to 6%. That's a big number,
Yeah.
right? So, but they're on their way back down now. I think it's there. I watch a lot of YouTube and people predicting where this is going, and no one knows for sure, but they're on the trend down again right now.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's get you to put your wizard hat on. What does farmland values look like for the next 12, 24 months? And I'm going to add on to that even to make it even spicier. Do we think we'll ever Oh, I don't even like saying this. You know where I'm going, Ted. Do you think we're ever going to see where farmland starts to drop?
Great question. So I'll put the wizard hat on,
Yeah.
and I'll preface my comment with, I wish I was this smart to answer this question accurately. No one really knows what tomorrow brings. We don't know if we're going to be, a third world war. We don't know if there's going to be another pandemic. We don't know cattle prices, grain prices, interest rates, weather. There's so many unknowns, and that's why we can't really accurately predict. But I would say the next 12 to 24 months are probably going to be softer, right? We're moving from that seller's market. I think we're already in a balanced market for most areas. Some areas still a seller's, some of maybe a buyer's market. And I think, I don't see this turning around overnight. I'm really bullish on farmland long term. I'm really optimistic about it long term. I just think we got a little bump in the road here and things are going to be a little quieter and softer for a bit. To your spicy comment about are we ever going to see them go down?
The bubble.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw certain weather pressured areas have a correction.
Mm,
And I know there's been some predictions as of late of these massive downward turns. I myself am not a believer in that theory, but a weather pressured area having a 10% correction or maybe a 15% correction wouldn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't be surprised to see areas with good weather continue to rise at, 5, 6, 7% a year either. I think wherever that was, it's just coming down, right? And if you were already here, then maybe it will tip negative a bit. And if you were here, it might go to there. And if you were there, it might go to here, right? So it's
yeah.
cooling off a bit. But
It's
but never say never go down. Like people that say farmland will never go down, I mean they haven't studied history. Like everything goes up, everything goes down, all markets, all asset classes, farmland included. You can look back and watch interest rates go up and down. You can watch capital gains taxes go up and down. You can watch farmland values go up and down. We know it's going to go up and down, and don't get freaked out over it. Just prepare for that, knowing that that's part of the natural cycle of things.
yeah. Okay. Well said. I was curious what the genie Ted would say on that with the wizard hat.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have anything to add about trends, markets, any of that, please do. I would love for you to add anything that you want to at this point. If not, I'm going to move to wrapping up and talking about advice to farmers that are looking to buy or sell.
I don't think I have anything else to add to that. I think we've covered quite a bit of it. You've had some great questions, so we can move on to your next point about advice for buyers and sellers of farmland.
Yeah, what do you think? If somebody's, it's always so hard, right? And I guess it depends on what's going on in the farm family. Do they want to
Yeah.
continue on? Is there a successor? All of that, but words of wisdom for buyers or sellers right now.
Well, you know what? You just said something brilliant, and I'm not sure if you know that you said it. I always tell people it's like, what's going on,
Mm,
right? Because that trumps the market.
right.
That trumps everything. So
Yes.
when people come to me and they're like, oh, like my health isn't that good and I'm 73 and I'd really like to move to Calgary and be closer to my kids and grandkids, but what do you think about the market? I'm like, well, you just told me. Right. So I think when I talk to sellers, number one, I look at their personal situation, right? Like, do you want to get closer to the kids or grandkids? How's your health? Are you having fun with this anymore? Oh, this house just came up for sale in Kelowna and we're thinking of retiring there. What do you think? It's like, well, if you got the house that you want to buy, then maybe this is the time. And other people are like, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm having fun, this is great. And I'm like, call me in a few years when you're not.
Yes.
So I always start out with that. Where are you? And I get to be a bit of a counselor. I talk people through it and help them really understand what's best for them. But putting that aside, knowing that's number one, I would say for sellers, if you're looking to sell, get a realtor that's a farmland specialist. Because in Saskatchewan, 99% of realtors sell houses. And some of them sell houses and a bit of farmland, but you want someone that specializes in that field. Just like if you're getting a shoulder surgery, you don't want your GP to do it. You want a specialist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same for your farm sale. If you can find a realtor that's actually farmed, I think that's going to be good. You'll be able to understand them better. They'll be able to understand your business model better. Um, Ask that realtor a lot of really challenging questions, and some of them might be like, do you have a database of buyers, right? Like at the Cawkwell Group, we have like, I think 3,500 qualified buyers in our database. What do you do for marketing? Are you just pounding the sign in the ground and waiting for the phone to ring? Or, like at the Cawkwell Group, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a really multifaceted marketing approach. So I think as sellers, those are some questions to ask your realtor, ask yourselves, ask your family as you get into this. Buyers would be more um, getting someone to support you, getting a realtor that has a good track record of helping buyers, right? So like, what's your system? How do you do this? Are you just looking at stuff on MLS? Can you get stuff that's off market for us? Right? Like I do a lot of work with buyers brokerage contracts and helping build farms for people and helping find stuff that's off market. But most realtors don't do that. So, what options are we getting and how can you support us? And really getting someone that resonates with you, someone you can trust and have fun with and enjoy it, right? It's not supposed to be like going to the dentist. Sorry, dentist.
Yeah. I like it. Those are some good final words of wisdom. And here's a question, because we forget that most people that are buying or selling, unless they're just aggressive investors and like people just rapidly expanding, we do this once in our career, twice. So what is that process? Like if somebody's in the audience and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to sell, I don't know if I want to buy, can people, farmers, buyers, sellers, just call you and talk?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where it all starts, right? Jump on a Zoom call, jump on a phone call. Maybe I'll go drive out and meet them for a coffee at their kitchen table, whatever it is, because you just need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And like I think a lot of people don't reach out because they're like, well, I'm not really going to sell for 2 or 3 years. It's like, no, call me now. Because
Yes.
if you have land in a corporation, it might take that long to unwind it. And we should be talking to your accountant and your lawyer. And if you don't have one, I have some specialists for you that can help you mitigate your taxes. And you want to have some runway to plan ahead.
Yes.
So please, people, phone me. Let's have a chat. And even if you're not sure where you're going, at least you can have more data to make an educated decision.
I love that. Okay, thank you for sharing. This conversation has been so much fun, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you. It has been fun.
You are so welcome. If you do not have anything else to add, I know we could talk for hours because we both love farmland, we both love farming, we both love farm families. How can somebody connect with you, knowing we will also include your details? Final shout out.
Yeah, 306-986-7255 is my direct phone number. Ted at cawkwellgroup.com is my direct email. And you can also go to cawkwellgroup.com to our website. All our contact information will be there. Cawkwell is a unique spelling, Cawkwell. And I love talking farming. I'd love to hear from anybody on any topic at any time.
Excellent. And again, if you're listening, watching, go to Farm Marketer, go to Impact Farming, find this episode, and all Ted's details are there, or do the good old Google, and I'm sure you'll find them. So, Ted, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a great day.
You're very welcome. You guys in the audience, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, like it, share it, get it out there, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.